Good morning, everyone. Grand Rising, Amir, it's good to see you. I pray things are well down there in Florida. Well, we're going to jump right in this morning. Welcome to Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. This is my contribution to those of you who are in a spiritual conversation each and every Sunday morning. I'm out here from 9 a.m. Central Standard Time till about 9:30, 9:40. It's a brief message just to give you some inspiration, something to think about, something to work on all week long. As you know, transformation don't come about just by pure information. Transformation comes about by application of the information that you have received. So I'm hoping you all are taking this information to application. So this morning, I'm dealing with a conversation called Radical Faith. And the reason why I'm in this conversation this morning, because we are running into the end of the year. We're bumping up against the new year here shortly. And I'm engaging individuals who are still dissatisfied with what 2022 have presented to them, or they have not been able to get the outcomes that they are desirous of. And so today I want to address that. I want to address what we all need to do. And that is, we got to experience something radically different than what we've been experiencing. And to experience a radically different life begins with taking a drastic, radically different big step. Taking a radical big step. For the vast majority of the people that I engage, they have to do the first step is dropping excuses. That's the big step that most people need to take, dropping the excuses. So we're going to explore that. As we know, 2023 is quickly approaching. And unless you are willing to do something very different, you're going to experience more of 2022. And it's probably going to get worse. Why? Because the universe usually give us experience that are catalyst for us to make changes. And if we choose not to make those changes, the experiences get stronger and stronger until you take on the work. So 2023 is going to be the same for many because you're not willing to do anything different. We got to take deliberate and intentional control of our destinies. We need to take control of our lives starting today. You have to come out of all of these conversations that are pulling you in, things that the shiny objects that are getting your attention, and having you looking away from what you need to be deliberately and intentionally engaging. So we have to become more mindful of how we are going off the path and how we're pulled into other people's stuff, others' conversations that are fruitless, that's not going to go anywhere. And the question is how? How do you do this? Simply by committing to joining us this morning in this conversation. So it's good to see you, Amir, Angela, Mom, Tanya, those who have joined in, and those who are on the YouTube side of the house this morning. Welcome. What I want to cover today, in this short period of time I'm with you, I want to cover 5 things. I want to just kind of touch on each of these touchstones. One is time for a radical act on your part. So I'm not here to convince, but I'm not here to persuade, but just to present this morning. And if you sense that what I'm saying is correct, then you should take the correct action. We're going to talk about the program. Yes, that thing that many of us are running or is running us. We're going to look at excuses and procrastination. Sometimes we confuse the two, but they are a progression. Excuses you often lead to procrastination, or they can stand alone. We're going to look at clarity. What is life saying to you? What is life showing you that you don't really want to see or accept? We want to look at the contrast that is showing up in our lives. And then I want to introduce you to a 4-step radical approach. And I'm spelling radical, R-A-A-D, because that's an acrostic for the steps you need to take. So let's start this morning with the definition. Again, it's good to see each of you that are joining me this morning. And I want to start with the definition of And let me see, somebody may be trying to get me, give me some needed information, such as they can't hear me. Okay, good. So let's start with a definition. Radical. Very different from the usual or traditional. Definition of radical is very different from the usual or traditional. It also can mean to do something extreme, such as favoring extreme changes in existing views, habits, conditions, and or institutions. And for some of us, the most radical thing that we need to do is change our beliefs. And many of you perhaps are dealing with, for the last year or two, or maybe 5 years, you're dealing with a lot of this back conversation as to running your beliefs through your filters. And you're saying that these things are not working. You're having a level of cognitive dissonance, which I talked about a few weeks ago. And anytime you make a radical change, you're going to deal with a level of cognitive dissonance. So this morning, I want you to be aware that there is a definition you need to bump up against, and that's radical. To do something very different from the usual or traditional. So I believe that there's times in all of our lives when we are really committed to something, then it makes sense to do something more radical. So you have to be committed to it. And sometimes you may have a set of situations, the perfect storm that comes through that kind of put your back up against the wall and you're forced into taking a radical act. Well, you're not really forced, but that's just the most apparent best next step to take. So then it makes sense to do something more radical. In the interest of achieving our dreams and our goals, sometimes we do that. But it comes down to, if life is not showing you what you want to see, it's probably because you're not willing to do the next thing you need to do. So all of us got to get out of our zones of familiarity. All of us have to move from that place where we are familiar. We want something new, but we don't want to upset the status quo. If you want something new, you got to do something new. You want to experience something different, you have to do something different. And this means that we don't want to shake up the things that we're doing. And so we become complacent, and we begin to, continue to run the program. So the first thing this morning I want you to consider is you must stop running the program that you're running. Okay. There was a time in my life when I didn't know what that meant. I didn't really know what that was. But recently I come to a conclusion that I have in my life what I have because I've been running an old program. I have been doing things that worked at one time and they're not working at this time of my life. And you have to be willing to assess what you're doing based on you started doing it when that was the next best thing to do. But there's always a need to be present to and aware of the why of what you're doing. And is this still appropriate? And so you have to realize that if you keep running the program that you're running, you're going to get what you've been getting. The program that I've been running was taking off a lot of my time. When I looked at the vast majority of this year, I was running the same program. Even though I had not pastored a traditional church in 15 years or 20 years, I'm still running a pastoral program where I am not a pastor anymore. The one thing about the pastor, usually you hold people's hands, you come alongside of people, you give a lot of your time and support. And usually you can do that because you have an organization called the church that supports you. So you don't have to worry about how you're going to keep your lights on and where you're going to lay your head or where your next meal is coming from, because usually the church would take care of you. That was part of being the pastor. But now I found that I didn't have that that organization to support me, to take care of me. And so I was still doing the things with many of my old members. They still call me. Many of the individuals, not me, let me rephrase that. Many of the individuals who belong to that church still call me by way of the relationship and expect me to do certain things that because I was accustomed to the program. When I saw that name, when I heard that voice, I just automatically served them in the capacity of the pastor. So you got to be very careful that you don't let what you used to do and how you used to do things be who you are today. You got to be willing to let go that program, not even becoming the thing that you're doing. And that way they'll keep you present to who you are and what you're doing. So I've effectively made a decision that this is the end of it for me. I've had a couple conversations with some people near and dear to me, and kind of vented on some things, and I was just assessing my life. It doesn't make sense for me to be experiencing some of the things that I'm experiencing. And I look at it, and it's because of me. It's because that I'm running an old program. And you have to ask yourself, what are you doing? Maybe an old program can be a model of delivery of service. You're delivering a good service, and you're using an old model. Like some people still waiting on checks, or some people have not even moved into the virtual world. They're doing everything boots on the ground or in front of people. That was a big thing for me. Sometimes when you got a program running in your life, you'll continue to do the same things that used to make sense, that used to work. So, just recently, I had the place of possibility, and we were going to do the boots on the ground things here in St. Louis, but it's not working. So I'm not going to keep doing it that way. The thing that's working for me is this virtual world, even though I have not 100% embraced doing virtual, because I enjoy being up close and personal. I enjoy seeing interactions from individuals and senses the individuals. But I've also found that the more I've done this, the more that I've picked up another set of skill sets. I can hear if I'm bringing up a point, I can hear that, go over that or extrapolate more out of that so they can get it. And I don't have to see it. That's because you're walking by faith and not by sight. We're called to walk by faith and not by sight. We are called to walk in alignment as to what we really are. We are divine spiritual beings. We just live in this container to experience this world. But there's another level of living that's living from this realm of the spirit. We're living from the invisible realm, living using the spiritual senses. There's spiritual sight. There's spiritual ears. All of the spiritual things give you the ability to tap into this new world in a different way. So what one thing do you need to do today? The first thing you need to do is identify what excuses are you making? What excuses are you making to maintain what you've been doing, to stay where you are? Sometimes we are stuck, but we don't want to really acknowledge we're stuck, so we make excuses. The definition of excuses is a reason or explanation that's put forth to defend or justify what you are or what you're doing. And a lot of times I've made excuses for people. I said they perhaps don't have, so I'll make it a way for them to get it. But realize this, I've come to realize what people desire to do, they will do. I've never seen the beauty shop not packed on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I've seen the beauty shop packed with individuals that don't look like they can afford those services. But somehow, some way, they find a way to get their head, their hair, their lashes, their nails, get these things done. Because that's what's important to them. And that's not a casting a judgment. If a person chooses to spend their money on their head or their face or their hands or their back, that's what they can do. But when you come to me with a conversation, and you say, I don't have it, the question will become, is it you don't have it? Or are you misappropriating or allocating your funds in the wrong place? So many of you who may need to take a course, not with me, or take a college course, or go back and get retooled, and you may say, I don't have it. That's an excuse. You do have it. What you have to do is say, this is more important to me than buying the latest fashionable handbag or getting my hair done every week. You have to begin to make adjustments, because the universe, and often in most cases, the universe has applied or given you what you need to do. The universe will never require anything of you that it doesn't equip you to do. Who much is given, much is required. When the source gives you something, you have to ask yourself, is it all to be consumed on me, or is it to be allocated to do certain things? But when you're living from the sensory realm, when you get something from source, you automatically outsource it in order to please the flesh. So we have to pump the brakes, slow down. So stop making excuses. Identify this week, what excuses are you making? What are the reasons and the explanations? And they all sound good. And you are the best defense of yourself. So you're justifying mediocrity. You're defending stagnancy or being stagnant. Now, here's another word I want you to become familiar with. And that word is procrastination. Procrastination means to delay or to postpone action, put off doing something. So you do have the money, so you don't have any more excuses, but now you're procrastinating. You're delaying it. You're postponing it. Take immediate action on some of the things that you need to be taking action on. So some of the most common reasons for what I call the procrastination mode is sometimes you want things to be perfect. No, start with what you have. Start where you are, because you are perfect, whole, and complete as you are. You don't have to wait for the perfect thing, because the perfect storm always shows up. You don't have to wait for things to be perfect. Start with what you have. Start in your living room before you move to the hotel. Start with what you have. If you don't have a computer and you just have a laptop, start with your laptop. If you just got a smartphone, use the smartphone to its maximum capacity. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to wait that things are all your ducks in a row. That's one of the things that reason people procrastinate. When things are perfect, they'll move forward. Another big one is fear of failure. Sometimes we don't take that big step because we are afraid that we are going to fail. But the scripture says the steps of the righteous are ordered. They're in place. You can't get to the third step until you take the first step, and have to be willing to step into a place that you're not sure of your footing. But the fear of failure keeps so many people stagnant. Failure. So you have to address that. Have you had failing experiences in your life, the pain of failure, the embarrassment of failure that is keeping you from going forward? I live a very transparent life. The first thing people always ask, if I'm having an event and they weren't at the event, how many people showed up? Do you know how disheartening that could be when you know nobody showed up and everybody's asking you how many people? Sometimes you don't even ask people those questions. Why do you want to know? As if the number of people validate that you're doing what you need to do. That's because we're in this like society. This social media society is based on likes. Look and see how many people liked your post. I have people even call me and say, hey, I noticed you didn't like my post. I read your post and it was a very good post, but I didn't think I had to like it, or I was doing something else and I was reading it on the run. And sometimes because what we expect other people to do, it causes us not to do what we're supposed to do because we're not being validated. I'm finding the more I move around St. Louis, more people know me than I thought knew me. I had a conversation with a very affluent person this past Friday night. And she said to me, I know you. Then I said, oh, so-and-so told you about me. Then she says, no, I know you. I watch your stuff. I resonate with what you see. Sometimes people are watching you, but they are not validating you because they don't really need to. Your validation should be internal, not external. Now, it's always good to have someone say, hey, I heard you, I watched you, I enjoyed that. That gives you a stroke, that gives you momentum. But you have to be willing to do what you're called to do, what your burning desire is, if nobody else is resonating with it. As one of the things I used to hear as a pastor, people say, if you're leading and you don't have followers, then you're just taking a walk. I used to resonate with that. I used to say, well, if you're a leader and nobody's following you, then you are really just taking a walk. That sounds good, but that's a lie. A leader is one who's willing to get out in front and do something before people start following you. That's what got Moses in trouble, because you're trying to get the herd together and get them to follow you, trying to get this massive group to follow you. Do what you are called to do. Get out front with what you're doing. And before you know it, what you're doing has value. And if there's value, people are going to be attracted to you. So fear failure. Stop measuring your success on how people are resonating, especially early on. Early on, success is predicated upon your ability to respond to what's required of you. Keep on keeping on. Third one is fear of criticism. This is another thing that causes people to procrastinate. They don't want to be criticized. Oh, we've been Baptists all our lives, and now you are a Word of Faith person. I remember that when I first became a Word of Faith. I went Baptist, holiness, Word of Faith, and then I went. The most recently, years ago, I became New Thought, and then I'm No Thought. Now I'm Now Thought. My spiritual self evolved. So it wasn't so much my spiritual self evolving; it was I was shedding the religious cloaks. I changed from a heavy coat to a lighter coat to no cloak. Now I'm walking as a spiritual being. So, but the criticism that comes with, that's where a lot of cognitive dissonance comes from, because we don't want the criticism. Turn away, close it off. Shut it down. Know how to ask somebody, did I ask for your opinion? Okay, avoidance. A lot of times we procrastinate because we are avoiding something, like having to write that paper, or having to complete that application, or having to begin the work of going to the gym. Procrastination, we're avoiding something. Maybe because it's uncomfortable, or it is impinging upon our schedules. So we avoid it. Another big one is a lot of times we're not making movement because of self-esteem. That sources told you to do this, but you couldn't possibly do this because of self-esteem issues. Or why me? It has to be somebody who is maybe look better, speak better, or whatever, So we have these own personal, we get in the way of our own selves. Another procrastination is a tendency to self-defeat. Okay, so you're getting started, but you listen to your conversation. Your conversation as to something that's going to happen in the future, and the future never comes. When you say tomorrow, as soon as today comes, tomorrow is still here. It's tomorrow. So you have to begin to be present. You got to stop all the self-defeating statements you make. Be more aware, be more conscious. That's why a lot of us are not making movement to the next thing, because we are our own worst enemy. We're self-checked. When I was a kid and played basketball, up to a certain point, I was a pretty good basketball player. But, about third, fourth grade, when we started getting to sixth, seventh, eighth grade, the kids were taller than me, quicker than me, could dribble better than me, because that's what their passion. And then when they would choose up the teams, I'll get chosen, but I wouldn't probably be the first choice. But I'll be on someone's team as a placeholder. They need 5 men, I'm the fifth man. Then sometimes they wouldn't even guard me because they knew that, if you let him get in this range, he'll hit, take that shot, and he'll hit. But for the most part, he's not going to take it to the basket. He's too short, or, so then I was self-check. And then I began to limit myself. And so what you have to do is what has happened in your life that self-checks you? What things have transpired in the past that are in the past, but you bring them into the present? So that's self-defeating thoughts, self-defeating actions. Also, your emotional state. You may be procrastinating or because you're depressed. Then you may need to get some assistance. Sometimes procrastination is something physiologically is going on in your life. Maybe because you need to get up and take a walk, or you need to take on a health program. You need to look at what foods you're ingesting. So some procrastinations can be biologically based. Now, here's a big one that I find a lot of people run into when it comes to procrastination. When we do the procrastination evaluation, trouble focusing or looking at the reality of what is and accepting. So trouble focusing is, for one, all over the place, doing all kinds of things, or even just looking at what's glaring him in the face, what's so obvious, because you're not focusing or you don't want to see. Sometimes life, your physical body will show you having throat problems. It's probably something you don't want to say. You're having digestive problems. It's something you don't want to ingest or you don't want to digest. Having problems with your sight, maybe it's something you want to see or don't want to see, and so your sight begins to bother you. So they said the metaphysical, your physical body tells you certain things about what's going on with you. So we got to begin to know that focus is a big issue. Hocus pocus, where's your focus? Change the things you look at, and the things you're looking at will change. So the next thing I want to talk about is clarity. See if I got any comments over here in the chat as we go forward. Good morning, everyone. Accept and receive the reflection of your BS. Yes, it stinks, your belief system. Linda says, in words of Martin Luther King, if I can help somebody teach someone, then my living will not be in vain. No, you can't help nobody. Everybody got to help themselves. All that stuff sounds good. A lot of things that Linda, and I'm not meaning to go in on you, but a lot of things that these old preachers were saying, your life is not about helping anyone. Your life is about showing up as your best self, with your best service, your best product. And guess what? Then they have to want it. They have to see that you are the individual, or you have the answer. But if we wait to see what people need to see, then we'll never see what we need to be. So what we have to learn to do is be on point, doing what we're supposed to do, even if nobody's in line to buy, to receive your services. Now, she says, no, Asar, that you are making a positive impact in the lives of me. I appreciate that. And sometimes I have to encourage myself. Sometimes I have to convince myself. I've been in this game a lot longer than most people. I was just thinking, it's 40 next week. Will be in 1992, November 27th, we opened the ministry, or Exodus Ministries. That's 92 was when I went into the pastorate. So what's that, 30 years? And then 10 years prior to that, I was called into ministry. So I've been in this religious conversation, this evolving spiritual conversation for 40 years. Not only have I been in it 40 years from study of books, hours in research, but life experiences. I'm an Mzee, I'm an elder. That's a West African word, Kiswahili word for elder, Mzee, M-Z-E-E. We live in a day and time where people don't value the old gal, the old person, the Mzee in the room. We got all these young people. Just because you have information, the information is not powerful until you take it to application and you can say it works if you work it. Yes. So what I'm saying, clarity. Clarity. Look at the contrast and become sick and tired of being sick and tired. Look at the contrast. Look at what contrast is the thing that you're experiencing, that which is showing up in your life that you don't like. Now, sometimes contrast is there to be the catalyst, okay, to change. I would say contrast is always the catalyst to change. It gives you a burning desire. Well, if it's not a burning desire, you're not going to change until the inferno of that contrast gets so high. You're going to keep trying to put it out or learn to deal with, okay, I'll just grow accustomed to it. Many times we grow accustomed to the contrast. You get used to living in poverty. You get accustomed to being by yourself. All of these things, but deep down inside, you always have this little nudge saying, this is not satisfying. So you got to get clarity. That is, be willing to look at what is showing up in your life. What is life showing you that you are dissatisfied with, that you're tired of? You know, the old church used to preach, you know, when you get to heaven, you know, you're going to walk the streets of gold. There's no gold streets in heaven. You're not going to dust off clouds. You're not going to sing in the heavenly choir. What makes you think, as an earth being, that you can go to heaven and displace a heavenly being in the choir? So we say all this crazy religious stuff. No, none of that is going on. You return to source. But you're going to ask right now, you're in this incarnation. You came here to experience, or you came here as source seeking to express itself in life as you, through you. What are you dissatisfied with? You got to ask yourself. So I want to, over the next few weeks. Now, those who have been following me for the last 11 weeks, we have the master course that's been going on, Mastery of the Mind, and they've already been introduced to this. And we're preparing ourselves to go into the last part of this year, creating our action boards, not vision boards. And a lot of times people say, I'm doing vision boarding. Why are you doing vision boarding? What do you know about vision boarding? Where's the vision that you're putting on your board coming from? See, we get caught up in all this stuff that is going on around us. But activity and accomplishment is not the same thing. So there was a book I was reading, I purchased earlier this year. And the name of this book is The Source, The Secrets of the Universe, The Science of the Brain by Tara Swart. She's a psychiatrist, and you may say, well, why are you reading something like that when you're in this conversation of manifestation? Because as you think, so are you. So to really be a powerful creator, you got to understand how your mind works. You got to understand how the brain works. You got to understand how you work. And in her book, she talks about a four-step methodology that, if espoused, you'll begin to see the things you desire. That is, you visualize, you believe, you manifest, and you achieve. And you have a much more fuller life. Now, the reason why I'm reading the book, because I tell many of you, I'm a spiritual scientist. I'm outcome-based. Everything I do as a therapist, I'm outcome-based therapist. How do you become outcome-based? You know what the client is looking for, and you help them get to that. Okay, so what you have to understand as a spiritual scientist, I want to identify the practices and the principles that give those who follow them the outcomes they desire. So there are 4 steps, and I want to take a moment and just go over the 4 steps that you need to become familiar with. The first step is you got to, so it's called the RAD. So I labeled it the RAD, R-A-A-D method. Okay, the R is raise awareness. Okay, you got to raise your awareness. You got to become conscious of what is really going on, what programs you are running, and which programs need to be switched off. You have to be inside of raised awareness. You got to be willing to count the cost. What will it take for me? What radical step do I need to take? And do I have the wherewithal? Do I have the fortitude or the integrity to do it? Count the cost. Don't get started unless you're going to go through it, okay? That is, unless you're going to be committed to it. Now, Just being committed to it does not mean you're going to get all the way through it. But it says that I'm going to start this thing and I'm going to persevere. I'm going to raise my awareness to what things that am I doing that does not represent my highest and greatest good. Now, at one point in your life, they may have represented your highest and greatest good, but today they don't. Now, the next thing is action. Now, one of the things we're going to do for the next, starting in December, we're going to work on the action board. We're going to work on the five domains. Not only you're going to, the difference between an action board and a vision board is basically this. A vision board, you cut and paste. An action board, you cut, paste, write, and you are doing some other work inside of that. And there's actions associated, not just thinking you put a picture on the wall and look at it every day, that is going to happen. There's some other actions that are going along with that most of us not aware of. So the action or the action boarding that we're going to do, willingness to take a big step. Some of you don't even want to take small steps. Now, I'm not judging anybody, but I'm just coming at you as a coach. You know, you don't want to take the small steps because it's inconveniencing you. Willingness to take a big step and get the support you need. Some things you can't do by yourself. Some things you have to get someone to come alongside of you as a coach to hold you accountable. Sometimes you must get in front of the psychiatrist, the psychologist, and really dig deep into that thing. Now, don't make the mistake of getting these new coaches out here that are doing therapy. A coach is not in your life to do therapy. Now, you may have a coach who have been trained in the therapeutic process, have their master's, their certification, those things. But when you are looking for coaching, know the difference between coaching and therapy. Sometimes they're in need, when you need therapy, put coaching on hold. Get the therapy you need, get through the therapy, get a coach. Not only you've dealt with the past, and you're in the present, now you're ready to do the work. The coach does the work on the field that's concerning today. Coaches don't spend a lot of time in yesterday. They may give you an opportunity to express. It may come up occasionally, but the whole session, the time with them, the treatment plan, the strategy is not dealing with the past. It's dealing with the present. Actions that you take now to create the life you desire. So you got to begin to, when I talk about taking action, is also maybe reallocating your resources to get the maximum return. The things you're spending money on that make you look good temporarily, but those things are not the things you need to be doing. Maybe you need to stop spending the money on that and spend money on a course, purchasing a course, seeing a therapist or seeing a coach. Reallocate your fund instead of saying, when I get more money. No, you're not going to get any more than you got until you start doing what you need to do with the things, doing the appropriate thing, being a good steward of what you have in your hand. Now, so you got to begin to ask yourself, am I spending my resources in the right places? Attention, okay, so raise awareness, that's the R. Action steps that you're going to take is the other A. The second A is attention. Focused attention that rewires your program. You have to rewire your program. Remember we talked about the program? The program is habitual. So you got to rewire that. That's why I like this book, because it talks about the neuroplasticity of your brain. You got to understand how your brain works. Okay, I don't care how much you affirm something, you have a positive statement. Unless you are understand how the brain is rewired, it's an exercise in futility. So understanding how your brain works, how the plasticity of your brain, that you can change the program. But many of us don't want to do the work of the first work is to become aware that there is a program and how the program is written, and you rewrite your code. You can rewrite your code. The fourth step is deliberate practices. Okay? In the game of life, you can't be on the bench. You got to get on the court. In the game, the bench is not where you need to be when it comes to your life. You need to be starring versus co-starring in your life. You need to be the main character instead of making a cameo in your own life. So you got to take on some very deliberate and intentional practices if you want to live that desired life in 2023. People say it, people see it, but I often ask people. I sit with people. I've been minding my own business. Usually when I'm out at a restaurant, I have a book, and people always ask, what you reading? While I'm standing in line, they'll say, what you reading? And I'll tell them, and then we strike up a conversation. Then they say, that sound good. Then they say, how can we reach you? And do you have a website? I have all of that. But then there comes the excuses. When I get what you have, because you have bumped up against me, that tells me you have it somewhere. So, but that's not for me to concern myself with. But I used to. The old program was help as many people as I can, and it'll come back to me in some way. But then you get so tired that when the person that comes that really wants to buy into your service or your good, you don't even have the same burning desire to deliver it, because you've been used up. And that's what a lot of people out there. Don't let other people devalue what is valuable. Not your delivery of service, not the good you have. You are valuable. You are authentically created to be valued. And there's somebody who sees your value, someone who will appreciate your value. I value you. That's why I invest my time in you. Yes, this is my time. I value you. I believe that there's someone who's going to wake up one day and perhaps see this on a YouTube channel. But if I didn't do what I need to do today, then guess what? Then I'm misappropriating my greatness. So that's my conversation for you this morning. Are you willing to do something radically different in the next 40 days of this year? Where are we at now? Today's the 20th. And so that means we have 7, 14, almost 14. No, that means we have 7, 8, 9, 10 days left in this month. And then we have 31 days. So that's 41 days. Let's say 40 days. Are you willing to do something radically different? Most people aren't. The mastermind course, $12. $12. Either they didn't value what I have, or they didn't have $12. And I think most people just didn't value it. It didn't have importance. But I did what I was supposed to do. So I'm saying to you this morning, are you willing to do what needs to be done to take a radical big step? And the first one is to identify your excuses, then to address your procrastinations, and then begin to take action. Don't just run off. Identify what has kept you from being great. Oh, you've been good, but you haven't been great. Source wants to show up bigger than how you've been showing up. And it ain't always tied to money. It's not always tied to fame, but it is tied to, at the end of the day, when you lay your head to the pillow and you take that big breath before you go into your rest, and you feel like this was a good day because you expressed yourself. So that's all I have this morning. I pray that something has been said that's uplifting and encouraging. If you are with me in the room, in the Zoom room, and you have a comment, if you have a question, you want clarity on something, just go ahead and raise your hand. Or if you want to type it into the chat box, you can do that there, and we'll go from there. So before we close, I do want to make an offer, a couple offers. Check your emails, because I will be sending out some more information about the upcoming, the action board, or creating your desired life exercise that we're going to. Your desired life is not just going to show up. Remember, I said creating. That means you have to do something. You have to speak truth to power. So the next 5 weeks, we're going to begin to move into actually the action boarding process is going to start in the first week of December. So I'm going to lay this all out for you guys. I'm getting it real time and going to lay it out. And it's not going to be free. There's going to be something associated. I mean, it's going to cost your time. You're going to have a commitment to it. And then there's going to be a dollar value tied to it. So people, you just have to make a decision. This is what you want to do. Well, if this message this morning has been encouraging and uplifting and somewhat enlightening, consider sowing a seed of appreciation for the time that we have been together. You can go to oasisspiritualcenter.com, over to the giving tab, and you'll find all the platforms by which you can sow into this ministry. Excuses, procrastinations. And I see it all the time. I've been doing this the whole year, 52 Sundays out the year. I'm here. Very few people even give $5. More people on Facebook or YouTube that don't know me have sown seeds into this ministry or into what I do than those who know me. And what that's about, usually that's the sin of familiarity. Oh, that's just Greg. Or when someone gives something appear to be free to you, then you say it don't have as much value. But when you pay a significant sum for something, you usually value that thing, place it in a safe place, use that thing. But when information is readily available to us, sometimes we just say, okay, but I'm making an appeal to you this morning, not because I have a need or neither because of greed, because I teach a law. It's called the law of circulation. And that is when we go to a restaurant, matter of fact, they don't even give you the choice anymore. They automatically say what the percentages are, assuming that you're going to give something. But I believe giving is a choice. So this morning, if you want to sow a seed into this ministry, you can go to the website, Oasis Spiritual Center, or the oasisspiritualcenter.com, or you can just go to the if you want to give by way of PayPal, you can go and look up Oasis Spiritual Center, or if you want to give by Cash App, you can simply put the phone number in, which is 708-368-1076. Somebody can type that in there for me, 708-368-1076, and you will see Oasis Spiritual Center will come up, and you know you're in the right place. So I thank those of you who have sown seeds into this ministry. And may it come back to you in many ways. Well, that's all I have this morning. It's been a wonderful time with you. We're going to close this morning with the same song we started with, and that's Harold Melvin, To Be Free to Be Who You Are. To be free to be who you are. Not who you want to be, will be, but who you are.